Hey, Billy, this way. Yes. You're my head.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carlos complied with the notice provisions of the Sunshine Law by adopting prior to January 10th of this year a resolution prescribing the dates, times, and locations of all regular meetings of the Commission. This meeting is one of the meetings listed in such resolution, and copies of the resolution were, prior to January 10th, filed with the Borough Clerk.
We do not have minutes for this evening, and I need a motion to file the following reports. Municipal Court, Public Works, Tax Collector, Treasurer, CFO, and Zoning Official.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we thank you all for coming out tonight. We had a recognition of a unit of our fire department, a crew from our fire department. They were recognized last week by the county, and we'd like to bring firefighters up. Chief Davis. If I can please have Captain Fox, Firefighter Russell, Firefighter Jarozinski, which you should have heard the county folks trying to say that. It was great fun, had like 18 different pronunciations. Firefighter Stolen. Everybody could please come up, and Chief.
Is Katie or Nicole here? I didn't see them when I walked in, but they were the two victims that these guys rescued that day. They were supposed to be here, but I think they had a family emergency today, so they couldn't make it, unfortunately. But just give you a little brief overview of what happened that night. So on May 8th, and just a little background, what makes this really special is you kind of have to know how the fire department operates. We always operate in teams of two. We rarely go off on our own because it's highly dangerous, and the circumstances that we faced that night were more extreme than what we normally face on an everyday experience that we do on a house fire. So on May 8th, roughly 1:30 in the morning, we got a call for a dwelling fire at an intersection, Haddon Avenue and Ogden Avenue. So it was literally 2 blocks from my house. I got out, I got up there, and I found heavy fire coming out of the back of this apartment building with 2 sewer fronts on it. So what's unique is it was a multi-family occupancy. There was 4 apartments in this occupancy. There was fire coming out of the back of the building, and it was communicating up to the 2nd floor of the building. I went down Ogden and parked my car to give a size up. At that time, Captain Fox, Firefighter Russell Jarozinski, and Stu Lemmer pulled up in the engine, and they parked on Haddon Avenue. What they did there is Captain Fox radioed right away, and he saw a victim climbing out the window of the 2nd floor with smoke puffing around from the sides of the window. They immediately jumped into action. They pulled the ground ladders off right away. Firefighter Russell and Captain Fox threw the ground ladder up to the 2nd floor window. And as they're throwing this ground ladder, they're calming the victim down because she was literally ready to jump out because the smoke was that bad. So they got up to the ladder as quick as they could. She jumped onto Firefighter Russell as he was on the ladder, and luckily he's strong enough to hold himself on the ladder and catch a female at the same time, which he did that night.
He's done it a lot of Saturday nights.
So Captain Fox,
Long ago.
yeah. Captain Fox went to back him up, and then as he was climbing up the ladder, another female poked her head out the window to try to grasp for air. So knowing the extent of the circumstances and how quickly things were escalating and how dangerous it was for those people. Normally we would carry one down or pass one down and then go back up and get the other one. There wasn't time for that that night. So the firefighter also guided the second victim out and carried both down the ladder with the help of Captain Fox on the back. So extremely dangerous situation for those girls. I would applaud them if they were here, because what Nicole did is she heard the fire alarm that night. She ran downstairs and the fire was blocking the exit to get out of the building. So they ran back upstairs, woke her friend up, told her what was happening, and Katie punched the screen out of the window, opened the window so they could get air and call for help. But they also shut, and what we tell all the kids in school, they shut the bedroom door, and that kept a lot of the fire and the smoke from getting to them. So split-second decisions really saved them themselves and what these guys did. Any second hesitation of getting out of the station that night and down to Haddon Avenue, or any delay. Another thing was going against us. Our mutual aid engine that was usually second to was blocked by the train that night. So the other thing that makes this worthy of an award, I think, is that what they did after they rescued the victims is firefighter Jarosinski pulled the handline by himself, which is a hard task to do, stretched it around to the back and started knocking the fire down all by himself, and then went into the building by himself with the hose line to protect these guys while they were doing the search. Firefighter Stu member was helping throw ladders. He drug a 4-inch line 2 blocks down, connected it to get a water supply, and then helped Kyle stretch the line to the back. So not a lot of fire departments and a 4-man engine company wouldn't be able to do what these gentlemen did that night. And after they got the victim out, knowing there was not any other occupants outside the building that night, which is not a good sign at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. We thought we had more people trapped. There was smoke still coming out. The fire was still going up to the second floor. They handed the 2 victims off to EMS, and then they ran and searched the rest of the building by themselves without any protection of the hose line, putting their lives at risk just to make sure everybody got out. So I'd like to applaud them for what they did, and we're going to recognize them with a unit citation.
So this is the real deal. This is what it's all about. This is what everybody works on, what the department works on, what our police work on, about being ready, being trained, being able to help, having the folks living inside know what they should do, doing the right things, and having us all be equipped. So we want to thank them so much, thank all their families, their proud families that are here tonight, thank them for their help in allowing these gentlemen to do this work and to be available to do this. But we appreciate your work, and thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, we're going to go on with our meeting, but for those of you that might have come only for that, I know that's not everybody, but just might have, you are free to go. Okay? I'd ask you just try to not be too loud. No. I don't take it personally. All right, just
You might take it personally.
we're taking names and addresses at the back door. That's all. Got it. Thank you. Okay.
We have the second reading of public hearing on ordinance 16-3, amending the Borough Code, Chapter 217-25, recreation fees.
Okay, so this is just setting the fees for the various recreation programs that have to be set by ordinance. That's all this is doing. This is the public hearing on it. Anyone like to be heard on this ordinance? Okay,
Mayor Bailey?
yes.
Commissioner Leonard?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewandowski?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1641, various capital improvements.
This is you want to talk a little bit about this? This is the infrastructure and the public works.
Yeah, so, one of the things that, in a town with 33 miles of road, there's a lot of need. And we were fortunate enough, through good budgeting through the years, to have money in our in our reserves to really quadruple the amount that we're spending on road improvements. Our borough engineer, working with the administrator and public works, have been grading and evaluating roads and are putting together a plan to do work. But we're talking about somewhere about 1.1 million, $150,000 in equipment, which allows us to self-perform work too. So we're trying to find ways to sort of obviously modernize and repair our roads. Another thing is when you have roads up, and we have a DOT grant for Harrison on the other side of the White Horse Pike. Well, when we have that up, we're going to put new water and sewer as well, and it's just a good time to do it, and that's how things look.
Okay, so this is the public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone like to bring anything before the commission? This is your opportunity to do so. Okay, Bob?
Okay, Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewandowski?
Yes.
Okay, we have the following resolution. Appointing Nathaniel Blair as part-time inspector firefighter EMT for the Comm Fire Department.
Yes.
Yes.
Appointing Andrew Marker as safety coordinator.
Yes.
Yes.
Appointing Anita Schofling as part-time municipal court clerk.
Yes.
Yes.
Appointing Lisa Valera as part-time administrative assistant to the Department of Public Works.
Yes.
Reappointing Keith Hayburn as member of the Common Historic Commission.
Yes.
Authorize the ratification award of emergency contract for repair to Stefan Drilling. And approve the payment if presented by the treasurer.
Yes. And listen, I have one more, Kyle, which is authorizing a construction management contract with the Camden County Improvement Authority for various capital projects. The Camden County Improvement Authority, the CCIA, is assisting us with construction management on the work that we're doing, trying to advance the police and fire station, the public works department, and eventually the courts and borough hall offices off of this building. They've had a lot of experience in especially in Camden, but a lot of other public buildings in kind of managing the construction work, or a little more expertise than we do. So we're going to bring them in to help with that. Yes.
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 Okay. All right, Commissioner Lewandowski, would you like to?
Well, I already mentioned the roads. I just mentioned, remind people that Robert's Pool opens this weekend for the first time. It'll be open for weekends for the next 2 weeks, and then every day thereafter. And big thank you to all the staff, all the volunteers for Congressman Mayfair. I can't even tell you how many people were there. I can tell you the amount of work that went into it, and to all the community groups, the church groups, the neighborhood folk, all the staff, public works, police, just Borough Hall. Big thank you to everyone, because this happens because of your work. And I greatly appreciate it. That's all I got.
Commissioner Leonard?
So we've been working on trying to get some trees planted in all of the areas that have lost trees during the past couple of years due to some terrible storms and wind forces, and we're still up against taking down dead trees that have been hit by blight, storms, lightning. So there's really a lot of work, and I want to commend everybody who does their regular job every day, a great job against things like tonight. You heard the fire department was doing incredible work, and the police department and public works, the day-to-day things that happen. And the trees are just one small example of that, where we're up against Mother Nature and other things that are going on, and trying to maintain getting things done and working within our budgets and using volunteers and trying to help the neighborhood. And I think all those great things are just another day in Collinswood. I want to thank everybody for everything they do with that, to keep in close touch with us and communicate so we can continue to help in everything that occurs. I'm very proud of our fire guys. That was incredible to hear that. As summer comes along, I'm wishing safety for everyone and a great time at our pool, at our farmers market, which is incredible. And thanks for the Mayfair, with all the volunteers and everybody who makes it so great. It was supposed to rain 16 times and it didn't, so that was great.
It's my committee. Just
Yes,
for
it was 95, but it still didn't rain, so Mayor?
A couple different things. One, with respect to the work we're doing on a new police and fire station, we're expecting to do a public forum later this month. Right now, tentatively, we're going to try and do it on June 26th. We'll do a public forum here to kind of go over where things are, and we'll have the architects here to go through their work and hear from people what their thoughts are. My regular subject is McFarland should be open in 2 weeks. And you know what? Just a chance I'm about right too. It's going to be, they'll be doing they're hoping to have a soft opening by the end of this month. And a formal official grand opening will be sometime after the 4th of July. It looks great in there. It's going to be, I think, everything that everybody is hoping it's going to be. Okay, open up to the floor. Anyone like to bring anything before the commission? This is your opportunity. Yep.
Barbara Thomas, I live over on Elbridge Avenue in West Hollywood, and the firefighters, that's a tough act to follow.
Okay.
If I were faced with that, I would run like a frightened
You'll do
chicken.
fine, Barb.
I'd run like a frightened chicken. Anyway, speaking of chickens, sorry. Speaking of chickens, we had the forum last Tuesday, and it was pretty well attended, a couple dozen people, and everybody was favorable. And I was just wondering, I personally feel, I don't know if I want to be in the pilot program, but I personally feel that it's the right thing to do environmentally and personal freedom wise and for ticks, you know. And I'm wondering what's the next step in terms of maybe getting a pilot program, working on a pilot program.
So we talked a little bit about it. We'll have kind of our consensus decision by the 4th of July. We're going to work to try to finalize where we're at, and we'll either, I think our meeting is July 2, so probably by then. And I'll reach out to Kate or somebody, and just give them a heads up. But we'll have something by the 4th, just to give us a little, finality and give us a deadline for our homework to be done. Okay.
And thank you for putting on the community conversation. So that
That was
it's
great.
part of the process.
It was fun.
Anyone else? Yes. Just name and address for the record. That's all.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Spallone, and I live on Bellevue Terrace in Collingswood. And I'm here to address issues regarding Airbnb hosting in Collingswood.
Mm-hmm.
It's come to my attention through the press that several Airbnb hosts have received cease and desist letters. I was one of the first Airbnb hosts in Collingswood. I haven't received a cease and desist letter, but I've since removed my listing because I want us all to be on the same page and want to go against any ordinance or laws. And I've posted since I first bought my home in 2013. I've posted hundreds of guests. None of them have caused any problems. I never received a single complaint. And almost all of them have asked about places to eat in town or buy gifts. And through my recommendations, I think that's translated to a lot of money for our economy. Ever since I've been on my own in 2002, I've always seen listings, public listings for roommates, through Craigslist or through flyers. I had no idea that it was against any ordinance to seek roommates. I didn't think that just because the site was called Airbnb that it was a literal bed and breakfast. I thought it was just seeking roommates to help pay for some of my expenses while helping them. Many people who stayed with me have been vendors at our Mayfair, at Clover Market, I've had an Emmy Award-winning director stay with me, a Miss America contestant, and I've always felt completely at ease hosting through Airbnb because they have a host guarantee, and everything, all communication goes through a monitored email system. And you can always check out the guests before they stay with you, reject anybody you're not comfortable with, and only welcome into your home people who you feel comfortable sharing your home with you. And recently I read about a Texas Supreme Court decision that they side with property owners. They see Airbnb guests as residents because they don't treat the home as a hotel guest. They eat and they sleep and they entertain themselves the same way as a resident would, even if it's short-lived. So I was wondering if there could be any compromise that could be made. We could clear up any misunderstandings, whether I don't know if it's a semantic issue, I don't know if it's about the income, I don't know if there are concerns about safety or hearing codes, but I would just like to open up a discussion about that. And it's not a big profit venture for me. I make maybe $4,000, $5,000 a year on this. I get a tax form, I pay the taxes, and after taxes I get enough to cover most of my property taxes. It's just an extra source of income. It's an important source of income for myself and the other women who hosted, mostly single women, widows, or people who just really need this important source of revenue. So I really hope we can come to an understanding about this, but reach a compromise, and I'm willing to work with anyone on this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks for coming out and talking about it. We have some gray areas in all this, but we have different views on it, and why don't you start? Commissioner Lewandowski, you start on views, because we have different views on it.
Yeah, look, and I'm gonna talk short-term rentals, because there's Airbnb, there's 100 different companies that do this, so I'll just generalize it. To me, it's not a question of yes or no, it's a question of how. I personally think that there could be a path to allow this and still manage unintended consequences and other impacts, whether it's noise, parking, whether it's the unintended consequence of people buying properties and using them solely as a lot of see in a lot of cities and communities, solely as short-term rental housing, which then takes housing off the market, which then increases the cost because of the demand diminishing. So I personally think there's a way. I don't think it's easy. I'm not sure if it satisfies everyone, where I want to go, but I personally think that there could be a way and go through that process to see if we can come up with it. Personally.
Here's my take. Well, I don't have that take. My take is this. And really it's from the work that we've done here in Comm, okay? When I started this, the number one issue for our neighborhoods were duplexes, okay? And duplexes came about in the 70s and the 80s because mom and dad, all the kids had moved out, dad passed away, mom didn't want to leave her house, so to supplement her income, they split the single family house into 2 or 3 units, and she rented them, and that let her stay in the house. And then when mom passed on, then somebody from Norristown purchased it, okay? And it was literally the issue. We used to campaign on it. The issue was there was a problem duplex on every block. They were everywhere. And we worked for years and did programs where we spent a lot of money on getting single family residences back to being single family residences, okay? So to me, it's not Airbnb. That's not what makes, there's nothing different about that. These properties in which someone is renting space, okay? To me is, something else we did pass laws on and thought about were boarding houses, okay? Which has got a whole lot of the feel of a boarding house. Difference is how you advertise for people to come stay. You don't put a sign in the window that says room for rent. You put a sign out on the internet that says room for rent. So this issue has arisen because neighbors have complained, okay, about cars, about the people in and out. It doesn't make for the neighborhood life, okay? And it's not like having a family live next door to you. So I get that there's pieces of this that, the roommate business, like all that, we're looking at that, but I'll just tell you very frankly, like I don't want to see single family houses being used as a business for renting out spaces. And for the people that we've dealt with, you're giving a little different example. For the folks that this arose with, that's what they're doing. This is not somebody coming for the night. These are 3-month mini rentals that aren't regulated. They're not in as rental properties. They're not separate units. So it's a little funky, a little gray that way. But man, I've been we've just been fighting forever and ever to get rid of rental units that were not intended to be built into that house, into that building, okay? Because while you guys have, like you said, you haven't had any issues, the laws don't get distinguished on, oh, well, as long as you're a good owner, then it's okay. Because when the bad owner comes along, same rules apply. And my history, way back when, we still talk about where the parking lot is up by the church on that Ave, there was a boarding house there that was like the caricature for bad boarding houses. And it was the worst of the worst. And we had incidents with crime with the people that were living there. It was kept horribly. And in our property maintenance, we just kept banging away at it, and they just never brought the place up, never fixed the place up. And so I come to a place where I don't want to see single-family homes used as rental businesses, and that's what it is today. Okay, and how we tighten and fix things up, where we'll see. But I'm not at all. I don't like the whole concept.
So for me, a couple of people have come to me privately and talked about it, not knowing in any way that what they were doing was possibly not lawful. So it's similar to what you were saying, but a couple of times it's been older women who have a really big house that they could be selling, but they just don't want to leave their house. They're living in a house that they don't have their 5 kids and their husband anymore. So they're making it a hotel, and it's innocent, but not, because it's exactly what Jim is saying. All of a sudden, the 5 bedrooms are, 3 law students or 3 medical students. Well, if it's law students or medical students, how do you discriminate against it being maybe a person who doesn't have as high goals? Maybe it's bachelorette parties on the weekends, and there's 5 cars with a lot of loud noise. Maybe the people next door are very disturbed at who's coming and going. I thought I was in a single family neighborhood here. How come I don't know my neighbors anymore? And when somebody buys the house and moves somewhere else and just sees how popular Collingswood is and how an easy sell that is for people to pay a lot of money for the room by the night. Whereas I don't go back quite as far as Jim. That was the biggest problem when I moved in here. You didn't know who your neighbors were, and the person who owned the property wasn't there, and the lawn was 2 feet high. And we spent a lot of tax dollars, time, and money trying to keep cleaning up these properties. So although people are innocent at what they're doing because they're trying to do the best thing and make some money for themselves, it's a slippery slope to having a lot of non-owner occupied or owner occupied running something that we're just, it's all new. The only way I knew about this before was beach communities, where they're licensed and inspected to be 1 week beach communities, and there's licensed zoning officers who inspect those because it's a beach community. Like, we're not set up that way, and they have a multitude of problems because of that, and the taxes are astronomical because they know they can do that cheap. Like, I don't feel like we're on any kind of path with that. Our neighborhoods are single-family, duplex, attached, non-attached, commercial. This is a whole different direction, and I'm happy to read about it, learn about it, and figure out anything that I can, but I can look at where, mom who was left alone in the house and taking on some boarders and then breaking and putting a wall and an extra kitchen, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, there were 6 cars parked on the lawn in the backyard and nobody's doing gardening because really the owner's not home. So that's the slope we were on, and that's what's in my mind. I'm sorry to talk so much about this, but I'm thinking about it a lot because I don't want to go there. Again, I want us to keep moving on.
And the other piece that just is a concern is that one of the bigger issues in bigger cities are these companies, right, that just buy properties and just run them as Airbnbs.
Right.
Like that's just, it's big cities and stuff, but all of it just gives me like nightmares of being the same pattern as what we went through with duplexes. Like the next step to me is like, a guy from Norristown decides, you know what, that's how we can make money here. We're going to buy this, house, and we're going to start just doing, Airbnb. It's close to it's kind of like running a bed and breakfast without having to serve breakfast. Okay, so that's where we are right now. I'm actually sitting with Suzanne and Christine, not with Christina, right? With a couple of people that had to to mind. Now, Chris, you're confusing me all with your names. But we're going to talk a little bit tomorrow at the end of the day about it. But I'm not inclined to. Rob is inclined to do something, but not what they're doing.
I think like the concerns
long-term
that you brought up,
stakes.
which I think are extremely important, I think a lot of them can be sort of legislated out. For instance, you could say that if you're going to be a short-term rental, it has to be your principal residence, which means you have to live there at least 6 months of the year in the day. You can say in the licensing and the application that a person cannot rent out short-term rental more than, let's just say, a weekend a month, so 36 days in a year. You can say you can't have more than one, that you can't have more than one license for short-term rental per block. Like, there's a lot of things you can do. They do in some communities. They actually do neighbor sign-off, and they say, look, you want to do this, your neighbors have to be okay with it. If they're not, you're not getting a license. So I think that's why
There's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. No doubt. I'm just like, why? How does that make the neighborhood any better? That's all. I just don't see it making any neighborhoods any better. That's all.
May I throw into?
Sure, it's a public session. You can go.
I think it makes the neighborhood so much better. I mean, if we're attracting any award-winning directors and people who feel Collingswood is cool enough to show their hats at the Clover Market and the Mayfest and so on. It's like, and really, if it's an owner-occupied space, it's like she has a guest. And I think that you described it so beautifully, and like some of the Airbnbs I have stayed at. I mean, I think you guys maybe should stay in some of them before you, I don't think we should shut out people who are attracted to Collingswood. I don't think we should say no room in the inn. I think we should say, hey, we're hip. We have Airbnb, we have a few Airbnbs. And as Rob says, if you control some of the parameters, I bet you the Airbnb hosts and hostesses in this town are already mostly operating at this level of they're on the premises, they're not like, it's not like they're opening their doors for 6 months to somebody who's.
Listen, let me just tell you, the way you describe it, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, okay? Until it's not. Okay, I'm just telling you, it's it's a boarding house. Yeah, that's what a boarding house is. A boarding house.
It's not really a boarding house.
Yeah, it really, there's no difference. It's just how you advertise it, okay? And besides, what's bad about a boarding house? It's just the way you described it. It brings a bunch of people in, it's, they're all interested in being here. It's exactly the same. They're roommates, okay? They're all roommates. They're just running the business for it. So it's all good and great so long as it is. And when it's not, and they start bringing in, so the rentals we have now, first of all, aren't the short term. A lot of the people that were involved with the zoning board and stuff like are not doing what would fit into Rob's stuff, okay, would not fit. But what happens when it's, it starts to be undergrad for Rutgers?
Well, let's.
Okay, and it's kids coming in on Airbnb and they're staying for the school year. Okay, and there's 8 kids staying in there, and now they start having parties. Okay.
Does this describe your situation?
No, it doesn't. It does not. I'm just saying that could just as easily as happen. And when stuff like this comes up, it's like, yeah, it's all great as long as the host is really good, and as long as all the people they bring in is really good. And like my experience is that that's not the way you set zoning laws. You don't set zoning laws hoping that the people that do this are good, because they don't have to be. That's not a requirement. So we'll have more discussion on it. We'll be going along, but like.
I think you should put some of these really lovely posts in your discussions.
Well, I'm meeting with a couple tomorrow. They asked to meet with me, and I'll meet with them tomorrow. So
I mean, if I ended up alone in my house, I would want to have a roommate in my house with me.
I
Okay,
hear
I
you.
mean, I should be free to do that. I mean, I'm not
I hear
in
you.
that place, but that's kind of like just being free people,
Okay. Duplexes are being free people too, okay? And it was the scourge of our town. Just tell them.
Yeah, but
It was.
we're not talking about building walls, we're talking about opening doors.
It has a lot of similarities. Has a lot of similarities. So, all right, anybody else? Could be on this topic too, but anybody else? Yes?
Okay, Ann Woodcock, 121 East Palmer Avenue. I just wondered on this backyard chicken business, has any consideration been given to having backyard chickens, maybe not in a backyard, but we have 2 community gardens? Why couldn't they have chickens at the community gardens? And you go. There's been
consideration when it
Yeah,
was
I
not.
brought that up a
Yeah.
couple times. I think that's a great idea.
I just wondered why they couldn't, like, you rent a space for
Well,
Right.
the-
garden, rent a space for your chicken coop.
Well, just the most obvious is if the chickens are in the community garden, they're not in your backyard,
Well, yeah.
okay? So that's just number one. One of the things that people like about it is being able to go out and like get eggs and stuff like that. So it makes it it just changes it, okay? But yeah, no, it's been talked about before, yes.
I was just throwing it out there for something.
I
Yes,
think I seem to remember in the past, when you could tell me, it's something with them not essentially being tenanted, right? They're just 2 isolated
Yeah,
sections.
it's been brought up, and it usually doesn't work, to be honest with you, because if you're just gonna put a coop in the garden, then it's responsible for who's paying for it, who's buying the food, who's taking care of the chickens, who's gonna go and take care of it when there's 2 feet of snow out there, if you have a community garden plot and you live a half a mile away. It's the whole idea that nobody is really there all the time, where when you have chickens in the backyard, you could be out at work all day, but probably have some neighbors around, they might notice somebody's going in your backyard that doesn't look like they belong there, or we're home and we're checking on the chickens and, we don't have to go a mile in a 2-foot snowstorm in order to be able to care for our chickens.
Yeah, it's
So
not
rule
backyard.
of thumb, it doesn't work. It's been brought up a lot in other states and all around in the chicken movement. And it's not really suggested, just like it isn't suggested to have one in a school. People have said, well, why don't we have a chicken coop at the school? Well, unless you have somebody that's going to take them home, and school's probably going to be closed tomorrow for a blizzard. It's the whole idea. Chickens need to be looked in on a couple times a day.
whether it's before work and after work or what you're going to do in order for the welfare of your chickens. And if you're not going to have somebody around, but, you know, the other thing is, what is the town going to buy the coop and maintain, you know, and all that kind of stuff? Who's going to pay for this? When it's your own, you're going to put the money into a decent coop and everything that you need and the supplies, and then you're going to get the eggs from it. So who, you know, She it's just very brought up an interesting point. I just want to throw out, my oldest son went to the public school in Vermont for 2 years because he just was not a public school or Catholic school. They were looking for the right school for him, and he was up on a hill, and there was a working farm. And every kid who went to the school also worked in the working farm. And he rode horses and tended sheep and walked the cows, and there were chickens and pigs, and every kid was part of it to learn responsibility. And they had a manager there, and they had acres and acres of land. The animals were not where people lived. They were not where people went to school, which is the primary issue that keeps coming up, the space and the land. So I was hoping we'd do something with the community garden too, and somehow work that out, but it doesn't sound like the people most interested in chickens actually want to look into that option for the reasons they were saying. I thought that might be, I mean, we have a town pool. We could have a pool, we'll go to the pool. So there's ways to do things in certain areas if we really wanted to.
If it was like a boarding school or whatever, somebody lives there
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Where somebody doesn't go to the community garden all the time. And that's why it doesn't work in schools. It can work in nursing homes, okay? They are having chicken coops in assisted living facilities, particularly in the UK and in Australia, because it's wonderful for people that have some mobility and ability to do that. But there's always people that are in-house when you have an assisted living. It's not an older person living up by themselves that's trying to do it. There's people that have to be there 24/7. So if there was a problem, somebody's there. And that's why it's so successful. They actually call them pensioners instead of pensioners, which is what they call retirees in the UK. They call them pensioners. And they have some whose responsibility is to go out and clean the coop because it's not that difficult, and collect the eggs, and then other ones just interact with the chickens like my people do with my therapy chicken. But it works, but somebody's in-house 24/7. So that's really the.
Gwen, can you just for the record, can you just give your name and address for the record?
Glendale from Patton Township.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks, we're adjourned. See you in July. Hope it'll be warm. It's like 2 days in a row. I know.